When I first began this project, I really wanted to focus on the stories of others. I wanted to create a space where people could share their struggles and journeys, find community, and feel less alone. I pitched this idea, and I felt really confident about it, until I was asked, "What about your story?" I had never given my story much thought before, and always felt really uncomfortable talking about myself. How would I even begin to tell my story? I feel myself come and go in waves. Sometimes I ride a high for a day or a week. I feel in tune, in control. Every step I take is intentional and aligned. But then other times, I feel completely out of sync with myself. I find myself grasping at what it means to feel human and obsessing over this thought. I isolate and lose touch with reality. I feel very alien and like a sore thumb. I lose complete sense of who I am. With this project, I'm hoping to create a space for anyone who has ever felt out of touch, other, and wondered what makes us human. Here's that journey. In the past, I've found comfort in others being honest about their struggles. So I'd like to try and pay it forward by being honest about mine. Food can connect us, comfort us, and bring us together. The laughs and stories shared in a kitchen can change your life and create new beginnings. I've had a complicated history with food. Growing up, there were times where food wasn't always a guarantee. When my mom and I started going to the food bank, it did become a bit more secure, but was always a tense topic of conversation. The older I got, I went through some really difficult events that changed my life. I started to use food, or the lack of it, as a way to cope. It became my enemy and obsession. Something that I once used to dream of having was now a nightmare. As time has gone by, I've gotten better, but not every day is the same, and I'm always trying to reassociate food with more positive emotions. Doesn't always go well. I struggle with anxiety and often choose to stay home over going out. I worry about saying the wrong things in conversation or being called weird or people just keeping me around for a laugh. That happened a lot in high school. But for my final spring break in college, my friend Maisie invited me to Germany with her, where her sister lives. I usually would have said no to something like that, but I said yes. First, I had to get my passport though, which was a pretty wild process, and I ended up getting it in Philadelphia just 2 days before we flew out. I spent the day alone in Philly, trying to look busy, but towards the end of the day, I found an empty coffee shop where I was able to plan out a lot of the nitty-gritty of another large piece of this project, the workshop. I also tried to use this time as an opportunity to practice being mindful and present in the moment. That's something I really struggle with. I knew I might never come back to this coffee shop, and I wanted to fully appreciate the space before I left. As the sun began to set, the space changed, and I noticed how gorgeous these dried flowers were. Then it was time to leave. And then just like that, we were off to Germany. In Germany, I was able to fully give my mind a break from a lot of stressors I've been dealing with. I let myself eat more than I normally would. I had so much fun with Maisie and her sister Kellen. I saw incredible things, and we went to so many places. It was such a whirlwind, and whenever anyone asks me how it was, my mind goes blank because I feel like we did so much, and it had such an impact on me, but I don't know how to word all of that on the spot. Towards the end of our trip, I got the plans for the workshop all done and ready for when we returned, which was a huge relief. I even snuck in some time to edit. And then, as fast as we had come, it was time to go home and get back to reality. Almost as soon as we got back from Germany, it was time for the largest part of the project, the workshop. I felt a lot of anxiety as I started the workshop. I had written out in front of me exactly what I wanted to say for each section of the workshop, and I kept rereading it as I got ready to begin. Thankfully, everyone who attended the workshop was truly wonderful.
I play the banjo. That's my fun fact.
And my fun fact is that I have 8 cats.
And I live in State College and never went to Penn State.
But my dad was in a movie with Tom Cruise.
Oh.
Genetic engineering on zebrafish for science.
I wore a sparkly green hearing aid.
Today, what we're going to be doing is making little self-care first aid kits. So I have some fun supplies because I think crafting is very fun. I love anything that's like hands-on, it kind of like grounds you to the here and now. And we're also gonna have a lot of opportunity to kind of share and have a conversation. I'd really love to just find some togetherness, build a little community here around this very heavy table.
Did you have to move it?
So he goes. So, before we begin with the fun decorating of our little first aid kits, I want to start getting us thinking a little bit about what self-care is for each of us, what each of us do that's like self-loving, life-giving, and maybe like places and people and moments in your life that can connect you to better times. I know that life has been very rough and very unkind and very unfair for a very long time, almost as if since birth. And
maybe before.
Personally, I've always struggled with taking myself out of moments where I'm feeling overwhelmed and stressed, and I really struggle with like coming back to reality. And so I know that a lot of the things that I deal with and struggle with are kind of universal feelings. Nobody has it easy. So hopefully today we can all kind of find a little common ground and just do something nice for ourselves. You will find cute little pieces of paper. We can all start to grab some, and I want to start off I'm going to ask some prompting questions and just write whatever starts to come to mind. Let's start wide and go small. So first, start thinking about maybe a place that just makes you feel really good, or a place that you just associate really positive energy and emotions with, really good memories. You can start thinking about maybe people that incite positive emotions that make you feel safe, loved, cared for.
As the workshop continued, we all focused on our own lists of positive places, people, and things. We then used these to decorate our own first aid kits so that we could always look at all the positives in times of stress. I had hoped to have very deep conversation and really open up with everyone, but as the event continued, I saw that just wasn't the energy in the space. Instead, we all joked, laughed, we were silly, and we all really bonded. Being present in the moment with such a wonderful group of people was so incredible. I didn't feel like the odd man out. This workshop taught me that maybe just having fun, is a really big part of what it means to be human.
So here's my tin. It says, I am my own love.
Aww.
And I just cut out random faces. I thought this looked very aesthetically pleasing.
So I put little pieces of paper on the front, and then I found coffee, tea, wine, and I was like, yeah, those are my food groups. Me too. I have the front, which I just wanted to be pink because it is a color that represents joy and happiness other than yellow. So I found a bunch of floral things that I put in a row across the front.
Oh my god.
I found this cute little
layers.
scripty thing that I put here, and this thing that I just thought was cute, and a coffee machine because I love coffee.
Aww.
Makes me happy.
And then inside, it's not finished. So I have to add stuff.
Okay.
It's okay. The critic's critic, and I was like, oh, what an apt thing to put for something that's supposed to like make me stop being so self-critical.
Yeah.
And then I found this man who was like trying to fight, so I put his little fists under it.
Oh. Okay. Thank you all so much for coming and being here and crafting and sharing. Yeah, and just really for being present. Like, I really appreciate each and every single one of you. So, go everybody.
Endings are always hard for me. I had hoped that by the end of this project I'd be able to lay out exactly what it means to feel human. I would have a step-by-step plan and could share it all with you. Nothing is ever as simple as I hoped for. I've been stressed about the ending, analyzing the drafts I've written, changing all the words. And then the other day I was walking on campus, thinking about all of this, when suddenly my mind cleared. All because of a scent. This overwhelming smell of worms on the hot pavement. It had just started to rain, and the smell cleared my mind. All I could smell was the worms and the rain. The smell of the worms brought me back to simpler times. And I know that sounds weird, but growing up on the farm, rainy days would come and I'd be out with my mom and siblings. We'd be rounding up the juicy night crawlers for fishing the next day. The smell brought me back to summers growing up, where I'd pick the ripe blackberries with my sister long before we stopped speaking. It brought me back to hanging out with my oldest brother as he cared for his giant African millipedes before he too turned into someone I've never met. My grandpa is there too, telling me stories of the sweet birch trees from his youth and photographing mine. I was a little more me, and sure, I asked a lot of questions like any kid, but I didn't question my own existence. Now I carry ink in my skin to remind myself of who I've been. And every rainy day, when the air is hot and the worms come out to be found, my story will come to the forefront, and I'll recall my own stomping grounds. And maybe it's just these memories and this life. That's what makes me human.